Hey there, Streakers. Welcome back. It's Jeff and Jamie with you on the Streaking Podcast. This is where we dive into consistency. You know it, we know it, and we dive really deep into it. And one of the things that we're going to be talking about today is something that Jamie and I found. We were looking at TED Talks, and this one had a specific emphasis on it. We're pulling from the talk by a former U.S. Secret Service agent. Her name is Evie Pampouris, and she shared powerful lessons on how to overcome fear and have confidence and motivation, resilience all together. We wanted to dive deeply into some of the things that she said because it profoundly impacted both of us. So with that, as an introduction, what do you say? Let's start streaking. What is streaking and why should you do it?
Streaking is how you set up personal winning streaks. Look at who you want to be and what you need to do to become that person. This is streaking.
I'm Jeff.
And I'm Jamie.
And we are streakers. Through 30 years of marriage and 7 children, we have learned the power of consecutive consistency or streaking.
To start streaking is simple. You just follow these 3 laws. Make it laughably simple, keep a record, and join the streaking community.
Streaking is your hidden superpower. With it, you will consistently progress and grow in whatever area of life you want.
In this podcast, Jeff and I will share all the fun, exciting, serious, solemn, wonderful parts of family, spiritual, professional, and personal life, and how streaking powers it all.
So join us in the conversation, join the movement, and start streaking today.
Hi, Jeff.
Hi, Jamie.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm excited to talk about this.
You watched it originally, and you were impressed by a couple of things. I watched it, and I actually only watched the very first part of this particular TED Talk when I originally. Now I've watched the whole thing since then.
I was all right, I'm carrying the show because I've watched the whole thing.
No, when we originally watched it, I only saw the first couple of points, and that had profound impact on me.
It did, but the whole thing is really great.
Yeah, and then I went back and watched the whole thing again, and also went through I didn't go through the entire transcript, but I printed it out. Anyway, what we want to do is talk to you about this. So her talk, or her TED Talk, was about, it was...
First of all, it's kind of cool because her background is that she's a U.S. Secret Service agent.
Yes.
Which Secret Service agents basically are the people that protect the president or other prominent political figures, either in our country or dignitaries from other countries.
Okay.
And so her job is significant.
Yes.
And she talks a little bit about some of the training that she went through to get that job, which was also significant.
Right.
Nice little word for a lot of difficult training that she went through.
One example that she gave, for instance, in the TED Talk was that they would wake them up in the training at 3 a.m. and tell them they're going on a run and not tell them how long the run was, how long they'd be out, or any of those things.
Any of the things.
And so
they just had to.
That's just one little thing that they did in order to train them as Secret Service agents.
So the great thing, I guess the reason I wanted to say that is because she has a good background in understanding how to work with mental barriers.
Yeah, and she also wrote a book.
Yes.
Didn't she, on
yeah,
Bulletproof?
It's called Bulletproof.
Bulletproof, which has a lot to do with mental resilience. Mm-hmm. And I haven't read the book yet. Maybe we should get her on the podcast at some point.
That'd
See
be
if
great.
we could do that. Yeah, it'd be great to interview her. But for now, we're going to go into a little bit of her TED Talk. So she, in this particular TED Talk, really outlined that her catchphrase or her title of the TED Talk was you don't need confidence, or confidence is overrated.
It
do you have it right there?
No, it's becoming, yes, I do have it right here. Hold on.
Yeah, I think I have it.
How to
here.
Succeed
there
without confidence, motivation, or healing.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yes,
huh?
it's very, and I think that's part of what captured our attention is how to succeed without, because those are all things that we often talk about that are key components to success.
Right.
So it was fascinating to hear her. Mm-hmm. And basically what she said is that these are not key components to success. They're actually, what did she call them? Barriers? No.
They're barriers, yeah.
Yes,
that's
barriers
what she said.
to overcome.
Inhibitors.
Inhibitors, that was the word.
That was it. They inhibit your success.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think? I'm kind of pausing here because should we give all 6 and then dive into them, or should we just take one at a time and dive into it?
Let's give, let's do all of them.
Is it 5 or 6? Is it, or it's the 5 inhibitors?
Yeah,
that's
let's
right.
give all 5 and see if, let's give all 5 and then we'll go back and talk about them.
Okay. So first one is you're not that special. the isolation trap. The second one is you don't need confidence. Action creates confidence. Third is motivation equals mediocrity.
I know.
That was an interesting one. Fourth, you are nobody's prey. Is that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? There's 6 on there.
There are 6.
But this says 5.
That is wrong.
That's wrong. The 5 inhibitors that hold you back, and there's 6. Okay. So there we found our first discrepancy. So you're nobody's prey. That's number 4. Number 5, fear is an emotion, not an identity. And number 6, you don't need to heal to be resilient.
So it's fun to read all of them and be like, I
wonder
don't
what
know
that
if I
leads
agree with
into.
these.
Right,
but then as she talked about it, I was like, actually, I do. So the very first one, you are not that special, comes off as a little harsh, but it's probably the one that we've talked about the most since listening to the TED Talk.
Yeah, it is. Because one of the things, and here's why. What she said in the TED Talk was that criminals think they're special. They think that they're above the law, that it doesn't apply to them, that for whatever reason, in that situation, that was something that they didn't have to, they didn't have to abide by.
Right. That in some way, because they were different. They were different than everyone else. They were special. So therefore they were above the law.
Right.
She also talked about this idea that when you focus on being special, that you also become very self-centered. She talked a lot about when you feel like your pain is greater than other people's, or that your experiences no one else has ever gone through, therefore no one can help you, and you're the only one that's ever felt this. And you start to have all of these thoughts that become very self-centered, where you're only thinking about yourself.
Which is one of the reasons why it's the isolation trap, is because now it's only my problem, it's only my pain, it's only what I feel, and therefore I become very isolated from everyone else.
And I love that she went into recognizing that once you recognize that you're not that special, the companion to that recognition is, and you're not alone.
Yes.
You're not the only person in the world that's gone through this. It sounds so harsh, though,
honestly, when you just said it again. You're not that special.
You're not that special.
But what is it about? Okay, so I want to delve into this just a little bit more. Why is it important for me to be special? Or why is it important for you to be special? Or why, as you're listening to this, do you think that there's an importance placed on being special?
I think it makes us feel good to be special. To feel like, and at the root of it, at some level, is comparison. Compared to everybody else, I'm special. You're unique. You're important. Do you know what I mean? Those things that we want to be.
So does that, okay, so with that then, does that give me a false sense of self-esteem? Because where does being special come from? Like you said, it's got to come from comparison. If I'm feeling special, that means I'm better than someone else, or it's only by comparison. It's only an extrinsic value. Is that true? I'm exploring this with you because there is something real in society that for whatever reason we want to be special. I want to have the most likes on my particular social media post, or I want people to recognize me for some special reason.
And I think a couple of things. I think we are confusing being special with worth. Like you have worth. And I think sometimes
now that is powerful.
And it's interesting because everybody has worth. But in society, that's not what we feel when we go out into society. Is we feel like certain people have more worth than other people. And that's not true. Everybody has worth. I think the other thing that is, because I think about this and I think about like telling your kids that they're special, and you want to do that. You want them to feel special and important. But I also think about it and think, okay, is there a downside to that? We talk a lot about when someone is really talented, like you're so talented, and you can start to depend on being talented rather than hard work. And you can start to depend, I think, on, well, I'm special, which her example was when people think they're really special, we've found that that repeat criminals, people that are
chronic
criminals, genuinely think they're special, which is an interesting thing. That's an interesting path to chronic criminology. Because it started out by thinking you're special.
Yeah. So something you said that I think rings really true with me, and that is, are we confusing specialty or specialness with worth?
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that we do, because every human life is valuable and worth beyond gems. It's priceless as far as the human life is concerned.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing happens on this earth in the sense of progress, achievement, anything, relationship without individuals interacting with one another.
Right.
Meaning that you have worth to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what you said in regards to our children, when we're saying they're special, I believe what we're really communicating is you are worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Everything you do is absolutely worth it. And that worth is valuable.
It's valuable. It has value.
Yes.
And you have
and
value.
So moving away, because if I say I'm special, then what I'm looking at, to your point, is not only is it pointing in, but I also believe it points to something, well, if someone else has it, then it can be taken away.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. This makes me think of the covert communication, which is something you've talked about before, which is...
Well, you and I have talked about it a lot together.
But the idea of you're saying one thing, but what's actually being communicated can often be the very opposite.
Right.
And this kind of harkens to that to me a little bit. You're trying to say you're special, you have worth, you're valuable. But by saying you're special, you're communicating in some way that your worth is based upon comparison. And if that comparison goes away, your worth goes away.
Whoa.
And that's exactly, whoa, it's a scary thought. Whereas we're looking at it, because that's one of the things that she said. She goes, well, if one person is special, then everybody else has to not be special. And there is where that definition comes in of it's a comparison. And so I love what you said, that you're like, if it's a comparison, then that can be taken away. If you can be special, then your specialness can be taken away. And then...
So here's something that I was thinking about. Okay, hang with me on this. In the Pirates of the Caribbean, great movie, loved it. When they're in where all of the treasure is kept.
Okay.
And it's, whose is it? Montezuma's treasure, the gold pieces.
Okay.
In the treasure chest are all these gold pieces. And every single gold piece has to be returned in order to break the curse.
Right.
Which means every single piece had value. And it had the same value.
Yep.
That is what we're talking about here, is that individuals, every single one of us, have the same value, and not one piece can be lost. It's every single person that is critical and necessary to add value to all of what it is we're striving to do. And that if we lose that one coin, it's detrimental. It's significant. I mean, for them, it didn't break the curse.
Right.
For us, it's this great opportunity that's been missed. And therefore, the value of everyone is significant and important. And one of the notes that I made here is that when we believe our struggles are unique, then that leads to loneliness, because no one else could possibly be feeling what I'm feeling.
Right. And she said in it, she goes, those types of feelings lead to greater depression, greater anxiety, because you start to think you're all alone. Nobody understands you. Nobody can possibly understand you. Nobody can help you. And so you can start to see how that can really become an inhibitor and hold you back. And I just love that I love these things, that this concept of, by saying you're special, you're actually causing someone to be very self-centered, which is then and being so focused on self is actually an inhibitor.
Yeah.
People that are so focused on themselves don't function well in their jobs. They don't function well in their families. They don't function well in society, because we're not meant to function singly, alone. We're meant to function and help each other out. And so it's interesting.
And that's where we get back to the value conversation.
Back to the value.
Is that you have value, and that value is that gold piece. It is as equal to everyone else's value, and you add to the overall value of the entire treasure chest.
So it's been interesting because ever since I've watched this, I've had several times throughout the week that I've gone down a certain path of thought or certain experiences have happened. And I've said to myself, you are not that special. But then you back it up with, and you're not alone.
Right.
You're not alone.
And you're not alone. Wouldn't it be interesting too, just as a thought experiment, every time you thought maybe I'm not that special, or if you're starting to think that you're special, is to replace it with I'm valuable.
I'm valuable.
I have value.
I have value. I have worth.
And this person has value, and that person has value. And if they have value, then if we connect together, there's shared value that we have that we can both improve and get better. I think that is
And
that
I think
phenomenal.
It helps a lot with the comparison, the cancer of comparison, where if you can recognize another person's value and that each person is equally valuable, then you can appreciate the contributions that they're bringing to the table and not feel like, oh, I should have been doing that, or wow, I have to do it better, or any of those feelings that comparison brings. We can appreciate what they're bringing to the table. We can be inspired by what they're doing, and we can recognize that their contribution doesn't make us less valuable, just as my contribution doesn't make them less valuable.
That's why I love the whole treasure chest analogy, is because the contribution added. Everything adds. Every contribution adds. It doesn't take away. In other words, when I add another coin, it didn't take away from the value of the others.
Of the other coins, exactly.
It's the same, because if one came out, it's the same value, and you still have to have them all back in there.
You're still missing the one. Yeah.
Exactly. So as I look at this and consider this whole idea of you're not that special, the question that I then ask is there something that setting a streak or streaking can do to help with this mindset, or to help to move in a direction where I am recognizing value of all people? And here's one that I didn't realize I was doing this, but I now recognize after talking about this, is making at least one new connection every single day. I didn't realize, but I really do value the people who are in there and value their contributions. And you know what this has helped me with as well? Is looking at, I'll be small here for a minute.
We've talked about that in the past.
I know. I'll be small. I'll be a little bit vulnerable. Thank you. I look at some of the other methodologies that are out there, and I'll mention one in particular that I've had a particularly hard time with. Mm-hmm. And that happens to be Atomic Habits. And that's James Clear, Atomic Habits, because we talk about a lot of the same things and we just do it in a little bit different vein. Mm-hmm. I've looked at that as competition and comparison. Mm-hmm. I'm going to now change and look at that as value. What he adds, the coin that he adds, is as valuable as the coin that we add. Mm-hmm. That's really different for me.
That's good.
But it's different. I mean, it is something, because a lot of people respect his work, and I would say absolutely should, because a lot of the work that he did was talk about how our behavior can get to the place where you can improve and your behavior.
So I can see how I can see how this can be a way of fighting insecurity, because his value doesn't diminish your value.
Right.
His contribution doesn't mean that your contribution.
But I've felt that way. I mean, I'm just being totally vulnerable and honest here. I've totally felt that way. Mm-hmm. And insecurity on that. Whereas now I look at it and think, well, no, we have the coin is the same value.
Right.
And without his work, a lot of the work that we are doing wouldn't be as valuable. And the work that we're doing adds value to his work. And that both together, without one or the other, it's significant. It doesn't work as well.
Right. That's really good, Jeff.
Well, thank you. He can be helped. That's what she's saying to me right now.
No, I'm saying I guess what I love is that I don't think a lot of us like having those feelings, those insecure feelings, or that feeling of like, we got to crush the other person in order for me to succeed, or I've got to be more right than them in order for me to survive. And I think it is a huge blessing in life when you find something that helps you combat those feelings. And I love that she says these are inhibitors. So by being able to conquer that, in essence, you're allowing yourself to move forward, to not be inhibited by those feelings anymore.
And I have been
because we're
inhibited by
not
those,
James Clear
right.
isn't, he's not affected by our feelings. We're not inhibiting him. We would just be inhibiting ourselves.
James listens to this podcast and he's thinking, oh, I knew it.
We love you, James. So it is an interesting thing because these are inhibitors. And so that lends itself.
Because it really is interesting. His book came out the same time our book did. You and I were writing it at the same time he was writing his, and we follow a lot of the same principles. I mean, atomic habits are all about small, simple things that you can do. We talk about streaks as making them laughably simple.
We studied
a lot of the same stuff that he did in regards to, I mean, he came out with the British cycling team. We looked at chess players and successful people. He looked at photographers and what they could do, and we looked at what others did. I mean, there's a lot of complementary things. What we focus on, I believe, that adds value, and that the things add value. So he focuses on a lot of the conceptual, how habits work conceptually. And with streaks, we focus a lot on the execution, on the activity, on how to get it done. And you combine those two things together, and it becomes something very powerful. Both things very valuable.
Right.
But I'm insecure in the sense that we came out with all of it at the same time. I mean, you look at his book, our book, we were writing and publishing at the same time.
Yep.
It's kind of interesting to think about. But looking at it as a comparison, in other words, more people have read his book, more people have gone out and sought after it, more people have, if I'm comparing and I'm looking at number of likes as the value, then I feel insecure.
Or when you would tell people about our book or about the streaking methodology, and they'd be like,
have you read Atomic
Habits?
It's like,
yeah. So now we can be...
Yes. And it's valuable.
Added value, not, now we shrink. This is huge. And I think, we're being vulnerable, but everybody has these same challenges.
Right.
We're not alone.
One way or another.
We're not special.
We're not alone. No.
We are not special in our feelings. Lots of people feel this.
They do.
And we're not alone. And we can help each other.
So I think, though, that back to what, if there's an activity that I can do on a consistent basis to help me see value, I think that connecting with people and recognizing that every single individual has value and that we can add to each other's value, making the whole even greater.
So here's something
I think it's significant.
And as you're talking, something that I'm really thinking about and loving is that it's like your streak has layers. You started off, make a connection with people, really to help with work.
Yeah, with sales, networking and things like that.
But now that you've learned this new principle, now your streak's not going to change. You're still going to connect with people. It's still going to be, but the value of that streak and the purpose of that streak has gotten deeper roots and gained greater value in your life I'm not just doing this so I can necessarily get better at my job. I'm doing this because I value people. This helps me to continue to recognize the value of people and what they're bringing to the table, which also in turn helps me realize my own value. And so that's a much deeper why and a much deeper of who you want to become. And I think it's important to recognize that because you've been doing it for a lot of years, the activity is actually leading to greater growth in understanding, even though the activity is going to be the same thing.
That's really good. In fact, I have a story with that. When I was making a connection, this is a couple of years ago. So my connections are generally through LinkedIn, right? I'll make a connection, I'll send a note, I'll just ask someone to connect, whatever it is. And I would say out of 10, maybe 20 connections, someone will either write me back or will say, thank you for connecting. One of those particular connections that I made, the individual's name was David, and we actually had him on the podcast. This is a little while ago, not David Elser.
Oh, okay.
Someone else. That was a different connection.
Okay.
But it was the BYU Pathway when we had that interview quite a while ago. He asked me, he said, "Thank you so much for connecting. I'd love to learn your story."
Oh.
And that just took me to a place where I thought, wow, I'd love to share with him my story and I'd love to learn his.
Mm-hmm.
But what that communicated to me is that it had value.
Yeah.
Is that I was valuable to him. And then I all of a sudden, now I didn't realize that then,
Mm-hmm.
but I realize that now as we're talking about it, that by saying, "I'd love to learn your story," I want to learn about you. I want to learn what it is that makes you tick. You have value and you can add to my life. And I think about the number of people that we've interviewed. Right now, we're past how many? What's this podcast episode? 300 and some odd number.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're in the 340s somewhere. But over the life of our podcast, think about the people that we've interviewed that have added value to our lives.
There isn't a single person that I haven't been like, I didn't like doing that. All of them have a story.
Awesome.
Even though very, very different stories and very different personalities. Like you get some that are really outgoing and excited to be on it, and some that honestly are a little bit harder in the interview process because they're not as talkative or not as communicative, but
Right.
it doesn't mean that their story was any less interesting.
Yes. So, like, for example, one of the ones that we go back to, let's just marinate on this for just a second. The most connected man in the world.
Oh, yes.
Okay. Do you remember this? Do you remember who
Absolutely.
this was?
Yep.
The most connected man in the world. His name is Chris Dancy. Phenomenal. He added so much value to us. And just everything that he shared, we still to this day, I mean, obviously we're talking about it right now, but we still talk about things. And that was years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a couple of years ago
It was.
that we had him on.
More toward the beginning of our podcast.
Yeah. The other one I think about is Whitney.
Yep.
Whitney Johnson. She had David Elser. I mean, he was another one. He was doing the chores.
Yep.
I think of who was the CEO of Hintwater? Who's that?
Kara?
Kara. Yeah.
I feel like I'm having a test.
I know.
I'm terrible at remembering names on the fly.
Kara Golden.
Kara Golden.
She was awesome. I mean, we had her on. All these people that we've had on.
And they've enriched our lives.
Yeah.
And it's been, and every story has been fascinating.
It really has.
And so I think that's an important thing to recognize, that your life is fascinating. It may not seem like it sometimes and you're living it, but your story, your life, it's valuable and it's fascinating, and it contributes to other people. What you've learned, other people can learn from it.
And I think that is where we combat this whole idea of you're not that special, the isolation trap. Let's not work in isolation. Let's have value. Let's add value. Let's be valuable. Now, it led to something else that you were saying, and that was in this next one, you don't need confidence. Action creates confidence. We're not going to have time to talk about this.
I know we're going to have to. I thought we'd get like half of these done in one podcast, but maybe we'll send a podcast on every single one.
Because this one, just let's give a little bit of a brief. This one is going to be interesting because what she purported is that people delay action waiting for confidence.
Absolutely.
Do you feel, and have you felt that in your life?
I feel like I can be the walking poster child of delaying action, waiting and hoping for confidence.
Well, we're going to
she talks about not just, but like seeking it. We're going
to have to wait to share that. So, Jamie, I'm excited to hear your stories, why you're the walking poster child of you don't need confidence.
No, I'm the walking poster child of waiting for the confidence before I can take action.
Before you can take action.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm looking forward to that. We are going to have a great conversation on the next one. Thanks so much for joining us today on the Streaking Podcast. Remember, you are valuable and the people around you are valuable, and you all of us add to the treasure chest. So start seeking out individuals and adding to your value. It's not a comparison game. It's not about being special. It's about having value for everyone. If you'd like to comment on this or like to share with us your thoughts or insights, shoot us an email at Jeffrey, Jeffrey, at mystreaksapp.com, or
Jamie, Jami. Oh, it's kind of fun. I'm Jami with no E at mystreaksapp.com.
That's true. We'd love to hear from you. Until we talk again on this whole idea of you don't need confidence, and Jamie the poster child of needing confidence moving forward, we hope that you have a marvelous, fantastic, wonderful day. And as always,
Keep streaking.
A better you. It's the little things.